August 21st, 2017. I'm at Arrowhead Lake Campground in Johnston City, Illinois. It's in the path of totality for today's eclipse of the sun. It's a little after 1 o'clock, actually a little after 12 o'clock noon local time, and it's just started to cover the sun with the moon. We can see it just a little bit. I have a few people with telescopes here and there. Got a Dobsonian there on the right, got him a nice scope. Got another guy with a spotting scope. Across the way we've got people using a projection box that they made, and then I think they've also got a spotting scope set up. And another guy's got his telephoto lens there on the left. That's kneeling down on the left. He's getting some pictures through a filter. I was going to bring my 10-inch Schmidt Cassegrain if I could fit it all in the car, but it's so hot I decided I had to put my big cooler in here, fill it full of ice and water. But I did bring my solar filter for it, and that makes a nice full face shield. And with all the recalls on Eclipse glasses, I feel quite comfortable using that. The heat index is around 100 today, so it's so hot I'm trying to stay in the shade as much as I can. I just use this like so. It shades my entire face. Works quite well. These little crescent shapes are images of the sun shining through this tree I'm standing under. They focus it kind of like a pinhole camera does. Bunch more crescents on here. You can see Jupiter over here. I think it's Jupiter.
Oh yeah, up there, yeah. Oh wow. Look at that. Yeah, it looks like a really white star. Yeah, take the glasses off. Leave it in. There it goes! Love you guys. Getting back in. Oh, we got drunk today now, guys. Oh, don't turn the lights on. Wow, cool. Wow, that's so cool.
Woo!
Wow, look, take the glasses off, guys. Look at it. Wow, that's so cool. Take the glasses off and look at it. That is so cool. That's amazing. It's so pretty. That is so cool. When you put your glasses on, you can't see it at all. Oh, that's so cool. And look where his moon is. Way up there. See that? Yeah. Look at that thing. Wow. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. They're back to the box. Okay, so where the Eclipse glasses back?
No.
That is freaking cool, man. Oh, put the glasses back on, starting to uncover.
Yeah. Wow.
Coming back light, coming back! Wow, look how fast it gets light again. Alright, that 2 minutes is totally worth it.
Take a look at how it comes back now.
Yeah?
Yeah. I like that.
Coming back the same way?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like a
Like,
it's expanding more on the other side, yeah.
comes back, yeah.
Pretty cool, man.
Alright, that's it, guys.
Good one. Well, on my way home from the Eclipse, I had good weather. Just missed the clouds. And up here in southern Indiana, we got a nasty storm blowing in. Well, I made it back home from the Eclipse. It was really fun. It was really hot too. I think I mentioned that before. The heat index was up around 100. And what I ended up doing, I sat under a tree and I got to where I was basically on the north side of it, and even the tree trunk was blocking the sun, so I was getting as much shade as I possibly could, and I was sitting there drinking water. And every few minutes I'd go out with that solar filter I had, which was for a 10-inch Schmidt Cassegrain, and that worked really good. It's nice if you have a telescope and all that, but the sun's a size that it appears to be in the sky is the same as the size of the moon. So if you think about what it looks like to walk out in your yard and look at a full moon, that's how big the sun looks. So that was really nice. I mean, so you don't actually have to have the magnification. It's nice if you have it, because then, you know, like if there's sunspots and stuff, you can see those. So there's things that it gives you an advantage for. But that was really good enough. And plus, since it shielded my whole face, it's not quite like just having these little bitty glasses over them and the sun still kind of beating down on your face. It didn't get as dark as I thought it would. It was kind of like nighttime. I thought I saw Jupiter, but when I got home and looked at my star chart and stuff, I thought, well, it was actually Venus. I was on the wrong side of the sun. But so I saw the planet Venus. I didn't notice any other stars. It was kind of like, if you think about how dark it is right after the sun goes down, and if you're sitting there waiting until you can see the first stars to where you can just see the very brightest ones, that's about how dark it got. I could still see a few puffy clouds floating around. I could easily see all the people that were out there. So it gets dark, but it wasn't like pitch dark at nighttime. And as far as looking up at the sun, once you get totality, when you're looking through the filter, you don't see anything. It's like, hey, it's gone. And then you look up without the filter, and you can see all the corona around it, and you can see the big black circle, which is the moon blocking the sun, and that lasted a little over 2 minutes. And then as soon as that ends, as soon as the sun just barely starts to peek out, it's so bright, it's like, don't even think about looking at it. It's you might be able to imagine if it's a really cloudy day and the sun goes behind a cloud, and you can look up and you can't see the sun, and then the cloud moves, and as soon as it peeks out, it's like, well, it's time to look away. But it was really a good time. The place where I camped, I only had to pay $10 for one night to camp with a tent. Now, if you had a trailer with electricity, I don't know the exact price. I think it was only $15 to $20 per night. It wasn't very much. They didn't try to, jack their prices way up. They filled the place up as much as they could. I went and talked to the guy that was working in the office on last night, a little after midnight. He was checking somebody in, and he told me that they had filled out over 500 camping permits, and each permit might be one person or 3 or 4 or whatever. And the guy that was registering at the time told me that he had found a hotel room, but they wanted $1,500, and he couldn't do that. And I also heard that there were people charging $50 just to park, like in their yard. But the campground was a fantastic deal, and that's something to consider if you ever want to go see an eclipse. You don't have to be able to go and pay all that money for a hotel. And plus, if you do get the hotel, you may not actually watch it from there too. That's another thing to consider. You might get a hotel and then have to go drive and fight traffic, or maybe you'll get one that's right in a spot where you can just walk out in the parking lot or hang out by the pool and watch it. But there are ways to watch it without spending a lot of money. It's just a matter of what you want to do and what you can afford to do. Since it was so hot, I decided that I went ahead and left basically right as totality ended. I noticed some other people that were packing up and thinking about doing it, and then as I was looking around the campground, I noticed a lot of people weren't going to do that. They had all their stuff out. So I thought, well, maybe I can beat a bunch of the traffic, because I was about 30 miles north of Carbondale, and I knew there was going to be a lot of people there. And I thought, well, I'd get a little head start on them if they are. Now, as it turns out, there was a lot of people that were doing the same thing I did. When I got to Interstate 57, which was just a few miles from the campground, it was pretty slammed. Basically what it was, every time the traffic would get to an exit, there was such a steady flow of traffic entering the interstate that the people on the highway would need to slow down to anywhere from stopped for a few seconds to maybe 10 or 15 miles an hour. And most people were pretty good about it. There was a couple that thought they were supposed to drive around on the shoulder, and luckily I didn't see anybody cause a wreck. Ended up taking me about 5 hours to drive home, which was a couple 100 miles, and that included stopping and eating lunch. You can see on the video I made there was a few clouds floating around. None of them ended up blocking the sun while I was there, so I was real fortunate about that. I talked to some kids that went to Shawneetown, which is right by the Shawnee National Forest in Illinois. They got to see it. They said that the clouds were moving in and kind of blocking the sun periodically, and they got really nervous because one came by right before totality, but it cleared up right before totality hit, so they got to see it. So that was good. Where I was at, the clouds kind of stayed to the south. It was making us a little nervous, but we were still okay, and really we got to see all of it, so that was good. I don't know how it went after totality, but before totality until the end of totality, it was just fine. During totality, we also saw NASA's jets fly over. I saw one jet, and you could hear it, and it was pretty easy to see. It wasn't like nighttime where you would just see the lights flashing. You could actually see the body of the plane.